Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to look at why gradients fail. And one of the motivations for this video is in the previous couple videos, we looked at how to calculate gradients, we looked at how to calculate Hessian, but looking at the practical usage of each of these, I haven't really talked about where we would use the Hessian in real life, right? We always talked about using gradient to take a small step to reach the minima in our surface. So, where does Hessian come in? And that's what we are going to talk about today. So, most most of the discussion that you may have seen is it tells you just follow the gradient and you'll reach a minimum on the surface. So let's say if we have this, you just follow the gradient and you'll reach this minimum surface. But what if the gradient becomes zero and you are not at the minimum? For example, here this gradient is zero, this is flat, but you are not at the minimum because there is still way you can go down. So today in this video, I'll show you two surfaces. One is this one, and then the other is this one, where the gradient descent fails and only Hessian explains what's going on. So by the end of this video, you'll understand why the Hessian is not optional, you have to know, and why modern optimizers behave the way they do. We won't discuss them, but you'll understand why there is a need for those optimizers and how to think about loss surfaces, not just code them by subtracting the gradient from the x that you have, but really think about what happens when the gradient is zero. Are you really at the minimum? So let's quickly look at where we are based on what we have discussed over. We know that for any function f of x, the gradient, the gradient, it tells us the slope and it tells us which direction we can take to go downhill right now. And so when we use gradient descent, so gradient descent, we use this rule. If we have to calculate or update a value of x, let's say that is x new, we simply take the old value of x and subtract the gradient from it. And because to control the gradient, like how large or small step we take, we use a variable, let's say eta, that we can set. So in the direction of gradient we can that take that step. So this works beautifully on a perfect bowl. However, if we have a function such as the one that I showed you, let's start with this one, the this function, uh, right, this one. Now this function, as you can see, it looks like this. Is it has this point right in the middle. I don't know how to stop this from rotating. Okay, so at origin, there is a direction that goes up, there is a direction that goes down. So why don't we write that function right here? Let's say f of x is equal to f of x1 x2 is equal to x1 square minus x2 squared plus 0.1 x1 raised to power 4 plus 0.1 x2 raised to power 4. And in Desmos, where I've drawn this plot, I'm just using x for x1 and y for x2. So that's something to remember if you were to try and recreate this plot. This looks artificial, but this is the exact structure that could appear in neural networks. If we now compute the partial derivatives, so let's compute the partial derivatives of this one. we differentiate this with respect to x1 first, then we differentiate the same thing with x2. So when we differentiate this x with respect to x1, this becomes 2x1, and then this term goes away, and this term right here stays. So we have 0.4 x1 cube, and then the second term becomes minus 2 x2 plus 0.4 x2 cube, and therefore our gradient matrix that we write this way is 2x1 plus 0.4 x1 cube, and the next value is minus 2x1 or minus 2x2 plus 0.4 x2 cube. I could have written this down here like so, but either way, so we get the idea that that's the gradient. Now what we do is we try to calculate the gradient at a particular point. Based on this plot, we clearly see that it appears that at 0 0 the gradient is 0. So rather than using a numerical approach, we directly plug in the value of x is equal to x1, x2 is equal to 0. So we say that x1 is equal to 0, x2 is equal to 0, and let's see what the gradient looks like. So if we calculate the gradient, we get a value of 4 times 0 plus 0.4 times 0, and the second one is minus 2 times 0 plus 0.4 times 0, and so essentially we get a value of 0 0. And what does this tell us? The zeros tell us, it tells us gradient descent says I'm done, let's stop here, right? Let's stop here. That's what this is telling us. But are we really at a minimum? That's the question we want to ask, and the answer to that question comes from Hessian. That's where we use the second derivatives. So Hessian, that's the second derivatives. That's where this comes in. So what we do, we take the second derivative of this f of x, so x1 squared. We do the same thing here, x2 squared, and what do we get? Here, where is our first equation? That's 2x1. So we differentiate that again. That becomes 2 plus 1.2 x1 squared. This becomes minus 2 plus 1.2 x2 squared. And the cross order terms. So if we calculate x1, x2, then this would be 0 because there's no x2 term in there. Again, if we try and calculate the x2, x1, this will be 0 because there's no x1 term in this second case. Right. So with this, we at the point 0 0 that we are interested in, let's see how the Hessian matrix looks like, and that looks like this: 2 0 0 minus 2. Wow, so this is interesting. Now we are starting to see the curvature effect here. It tells us that one direction we have a negative value, and as you may recall, this can be uh, seen as the eigenvalues associated or eigenvalues related to that particular Hessian that we have. So which is the eigenvalue here? Lambda 1 is equal to 2, lambda 2 is equal to minus 2, and this immediately tells us that it is a saddle point. And what I mean by saddle point is there is a direction along which if we walk at that point we go uphill, and there is another direction at the same point. If we walk along that direction we go downhill, and so the gradient is zero, but there exists a downhill direction, and gradient alone cannot see this. Therefore it is important that we know the Hessian, because it tells us the curvature. So what does Hessian tells us? Hessian tells us the negative curvature direction. In this case it exists, and we could move along that direction. We could move along that direction. So if we take a tiny step, x is equal to 0 epsilon, then the gradient will no longer be 0, and then we can again resume. So we take that step, we add this sort of manually, and then we resume gradient descent. So now what we would say is that, well, we are here. So now if I take the gradient with respect to x2, we would get minus 2 epsilon, and this is negative slope. And now the gradient descent starts working again, so we could again go back and say that the new x is going to be the old x minus eta, and then we have the gradient of f of x that we calculated above. So in this example, gradient tells us where to step, Hessian tells us whether stepping makes sense in that direction. And this is why noise helps, stochastic gradient descent helps, momentum helps, because they all help escape this situation where we are at a saddle point. We haven't discussed those methods here, so it's okay if you do not understand them right now. Just know that uh, Hessian allows us to see the big picture to sort of confirm if we are really at a minimum. Now let's look at the second surface. That's just a random arbitrary surface that I thought of. In this function, it's non-quadratic, non-convex, and therefore more realistic. So let's write it down here. F of x is equal to f of x1, x2 is equal to x1 cube plus 29 x1 squared x2 cubed plus x2 to the power 4. If we try and calculate the derivatives, we have partial of f of x with respect to x1, we get 3 x1 squared plus 58 x1 x2 cubed, then partial with respect to x1 x2 we get 87 x1 squared x2 squared plus 4 x2 cubed, and then if we take the double derivative here, squared, what we get is, let's move this up, we get so we differentiate with x1 two times, and so for that we get 6, so this becomes 6x1 plus, and we differentiate the second term again, 58 x2 cube, and this becomes f of x squared x2 squared. This gets us value of 174 x1 squared x2 plus 12 x2 squared. When we calculate the cross terms, this is x1 x2, here we get 174 x1 x2 squared, and here we calculate the cross terms again, where we differentiate with respect to x2 first and then with x1. In this case, we get 174 x2 x1 again. Sorry, 174. Let me write that down. 174. So let's see. Oh, this becomes this term. So we multiply that again. So we get 174 x1 x2 squared. And therefore, our Hessian for x1 x2 looks like this. We have 6x1 plus 58 x2 cubed, and the other diagonal term is 174 x1 squared x2 plus 12 x2 squared. The off diagonal terms we have, this is here we'll have the term with this one, 174 x1 x2 squared, and here we have uh, 174 again, x1 x2 squared, so they happen to be the same. Now the issue here is that if we now try and calculate the Hessian at 0.00, what happens is we get a Hessian that is all zeros. And so you'd say, Nilesh, earlier you said that Hessian helps us find this curvature thing, and here if we get a 0, 0, how do we proceed here? So is that a fail? The answer is no. We do have a 0, but then that is the information we have. What we can do after that is we can add some noise to the values that we have and see what happens. So uh, this tells us that there is no curvature, no slope, no direction. So local quadratic approximation is of little use. This is a flat plateau, and we can see that right here. So it's a flat plateau in that near the origin right there. So there is no local signal. So what we could do is inject some noise, inject momentum, or move away from that flat region. For example, we could say that x is equal to 0.01 minus 0.02, and if we do that, then the gradient becomes non-zero, the curvature reappears, and we can again resume the gradient descent. So what this tells us in practice is that training plateaus exist, dead regions exist, and therefore these advanced optimization algorithms such as Adams optimizer, it helps. We haven't talked about momentum, but that also helps, and random initialization on the surface helps. So that was it for this video. I hope in this video you at least got some intuition about the real use case of Hessian, uh, and thinking about how it helps us understand the terrain as we walk over it to find the minima using the gradient descent. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please do let me know in the comment section below. I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye for now.